So in this video, I'll be creating a simple Node server and connecting to MySQL database. So let me get started. I'm going to create a new folder for the Node.js server. And I'm going to have to initialize a Node project in here. So let me switch over to my terminal, cd server directory, and init. Right, so this is going to initialize a Node project. So as you can see, with the package.json, we'll be sure that it has initialized the new Node project. So let's install the necessary packages, right? So I'm going to be needing Express, then the MySQL package. That will be it for the packages. Install these. That's done. So for the dev dependencies, I'm going to be needing Node1. That should be it. Yeah, so switch over to VS Code, and as you can see, now package.json, Express is installed, MySQL is installed, and Node1 is installed. Alright, so let me change up the scripts and start script. Don't know that. Okay, so that's the index.js file is going to be an entry point to our server. So let me create that file. .js. Okay, so in this file, we're going to be setting up an Express server. I'm only going to be using this file because this is going to be a minimal setup. Yeah, nothing fancy, just the server connecting to the database. That is what I wanted to show you. So wire Express, then right, create Express app. Then going to be used the express.json where listen port 4000. Then fall back to it. Log out saying that the server has started and listening port 4000. That's a very descriptive message. Post that. And now if we start up this Node.js app, it should give us this message. So we have the terminal, do npm start. And as you can see, the server has started and listening on to 4000. Now to just verify that, let me add a get listener on the default address. Okay, and two variables, request and response. There's just basic Express stuff. You can find it in any basic course. And just send out server. Cool. So let's test this out, right? Yeah. Start. And the server has started. So to test it out, I'm going to open my browser up. Okay. Now, if you're running the server on your local machine, it's just going to be localhost, then 4000. But this won't work for me because I'm not running it on my local machine, I'm running it in a VM. So I'd have to put the address of the VM on 1.2.1.8.32, and now, as you can see, this is the Express server. We are hitting this route right here. So this listener catches it and responds to us with this message in here. All right, now that we're done with that, let's get started with the MySQL stuff. I have imported the MySQL package over here, as you can see. So let's create a connection. So what I'm going to be doing is just after this line, in line number 7, I'm going to be setting up a connection. So const connection equals, we use the MySQL object right here, and then create a connection out of it. As you can see, create connection method pops out, and we need to pass in an object. Now this object will contain 4 properties. The first one will be the host. So in our case, this is going to be the local host, right? And the next one is going to be the user. So your username, that would be root, mostly, because your default setup only consists of the root. If your username is different, do change it over here. And then the password, which I haven't decided yet, so I'm going to leave it blank. And then the database name. So let me leave that blank too. Let's decide on these 2 properties later. So for now, this should create a connection. And then we have to connect the database actually. So with the connection dot connect. Now this is going to be taking in a callback, and that callback will have an argument. I'll take in an error, and if we get any error while connecting to the database, then let's just throw that error and log out that an error had occurred, right? Actually, if we throw the error, we do not have to log it out. That'll be just thrown out anyways. Now, if we don't get that error, then let's just log that the connection was successful. Sweet. Now, this is the flow right here. So we're going to be setting up a MySQL connection, to which we'll be providing the password and the database name later on. And then using that connection, we'll be connecting to the database. And while we're connecting to the database, if we get any kind of error, suppose the database is down, or it does not even exist, or the password is wrong, any such error, then we're going to throw it. If we don't get any error, then we're going to log out to the console saying that the connection is successful. Right, now we have to set up the database itself. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, I'm going to be setting up a Docker database. So I'm going to be creating a Docker host. Save this file. You can go with my approach, or you can go with the traditional approach of installing MySQL server. You can find the community server, and that you can install that for free of cost. Now, the main reason I'm using Docker is because your MySQL database will be containerized, and you can play around with it much more freely than installing it in your local machine, because this gives you a lot of freedom. Sometimes while installing the MySQL community server in your local machines, you might face a lot of errors and you might waste a lot of time resolving it. So if you don't want to go through all that hassle, then just install Docker in your system and you'll be ready to go, ready to test any kind of setup you want. It's a really powerful tool. All right, so now let's get started with this. We specify the version of Docker file, that is 3. And then let me set up the services. Oh, as you can see, GitHub Copilot is actually predicting what I'm going to be typing. So actually, this is not what I wanted to type. So let me disable it globally. Services. Now inside of the services, I'm going to be needing a MySQL database. So we name it MySQL or just DB. I think DB would do. All right. Now the image of this DB be from MySQL. Then the ports. I think it is 3306. That is what needs to be exposed. Let's cover this in code. Right. Next up, we will need to pass in some environment variables. And I'm going to have to do some research on these environment variables. Be right back after the research. So after some research, I figured out what we need. So here we are going to be connecting as the root user. So that is not a good practice, connecting as the root user always, but I'm just going to be doing this for test purposes. So let me set up the password for the root user. So that's going to be MySQL _root _password. That's just going to be 1234. Let me provide it as a string and not as a number. All right, and we're exposing this port 3306, and now we have to provide a volume. And volume is basically going to store the data from the container to our local machine, because a container is only going to be active until the process inside it is running. If suppose the MySQL server stops for some reason, or I stop it manually, and the data is not persisted, it's lost. So we are going to give it some persistence and store the data in a local machine. So next time when we start the container, we can read from that local storage. Okay, so this is going to be my current directory slash MySQL data, and then give a colon slash var slash lib slash MySQL, and that is where the MySQL data will be stored inside of the container. So why is it giving me an error? Names is not allowed. What have I done wrong? Do I have to give a over here? I don't think so, right? Environment variable. Yeah, that is fine. Oh, the property name was wrong. Right, so with that, I think you should be done. Just save that, and let's try to start up this Docker container. Right, so let me go in here. Actually, let's keep this running. This is giving me an error because it did not find any container. Did not find any database to connect to. So let's just stop this server, put it on hold. Let me open up the terminal inside VS Code. All right, so we have the docker compose.yaml. Now let me start up the container. Close up. think that should, yeah, it's pulling the DB as you can see. Yeah, it's starting. Okay, it's downloading now. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, then it is going to take some time. But if you start it up for the next time and the consequent times, then it'll be way faster. Let me just demonstrate that as well to you. If this runs without any errors. I'll catch you once this is successfully set up and running. As you can see, the MySQL container has started up, right? So actually it did not start the first time. I had to end the process and restart it. Now created with an empty password. Please consider switching off the initialize and secure option. Okay, let's just test this out. All right, so I'm going to be providing the password as 1234. Then the DB name. So I think we forgot to mention the DB name, right? So let's just do that. Let me just close this. Stop the container. I did that by using Control C. All right, so let us specify the DB name. So it's going to be MySQL underscore database. Just going to be DB. Right. So now DB in here as well. Clear it and start it up again. All right, now the Docker container has started. Now let's try to connect. All right, still giving us an error. Throw error, rethrow. What is this trying to say? Instead reading MySQL client. Server. Instead of reading MySQL client. All right. So the version of MySQL. Latest 3 days ago. All right, let me just stop this. The container is stopped now. Let me just change it to version 5.7. And remove the image. So yes, nice. So let me find the ID of the SQL container. Right, that has been removed. Docker image is this one. That has been removed as well. Start it up right here. Right now, that has started executed with code 2y. Something node. Oh, I think it's because it is trying to read from this data, right? So let's delete this directory as well. Okay, it's asking for permission. Fine, let me just cancel that. Let me delete it. Let me just delete it from here. Okay, sudo rm-rf. The name of the directory was, let me just check the name of the directory. Okay. Oh, I think it's because we were not in the directory. All right, so let me just open a new connection. Okay. And open directory. Right. Okay. Okay, now this is inside the node server directory, and this is inside the home directory where our Docker Compose file exists. So rm no, not Docker Compose. Yes, MySQL data. Sudo rm MySQL data. Password, and let's remove. Okay, let me do Docker Compose up. That has started, right? Okay, that has started. Now let's try connecting to it with our MySQL client. MySQL client has started. As you can see, that is 3309. So I need to create a new connection. And this is going to be remote one. Host name is my VM's host name. So if you are running Docker on your local machine, just give Docker host and that will run perfectly fine. And port is 3306, user is root, and password. Okay, let me just test the connection. Password 1234. Successfully made zero connection. Okay. Let's connect to this. And yeah, as you can see, we have our DB. Now let's just connect to, let's just see if the node server works. Right? We go to the new tab and start the server. As you can see, the connection is successful. Now, let me actually open up the MySQL client and create a table. What table can I create? Table. Yeah, my table will be fine. Now database selected. Okay, let me just select database. So use DB. Then create table. Okay. Table must have at least one. Okay, we forgot to give the column names. So table of ID, teacher, name, part, think, yeah, and the table has been created. Let's insert some data into it. Chapter. I think we need to give single quotes. Yeah, I think both works fine. So let's try to insert this. Yeah, we have one record in a table. As you can see, here's the record. Now let's try to query it from our node server. So inside this get listener, I'm going to write code to query from the database. So let's use the connection and query from the database. So the query is going to be, select star from new table, right? And that is going to be executed. So now we also need to pass in a callback. So as you can see, the definition of this method right here, it takes in a string that is the query and then a callback. So now we're going to give the callback. And this callback is going to take in two parameters, the error and rows. Now, Node.js callbacks basically follow the error first approach. So most of the Node packages, no matter what, will have the error argument at the first. So that's why you're seeing the error at the first always. So yeah, and if we get an error, we just throw it. Let's just beautify it. But yeah. And if we don't get an error, we just log out. So the data on the DB is gap, right? Then import out the rows object. Okay, and after this, after querying it, I think we can end the connection. So connection dot end. Or I think we can give it in here, right? Yeah. Perfect. Now let's just run this. So if we refresh, okay, that's because it is not sending a response back. So as you can see here, we have our data. So let me just send that back. Right? So instead of just holding it right here with us, let's just send it back, right? Let's start send rows. Actually, let me make that a JSON. I'll make the status 200, right? So I think it should, yeah, as you can see, we have our data. Now we can update our database. So let me just, okay, let me just insert a few more records to make it Johnny and page on the record. Now if I refresh, oh, so the server just crash. Why did our server crash? Start the server, successful. Yeah, you can see for some reason a server crash. I'm not sure why, but as you can see, it's fetching data.